Okay, so thank you all for coming today. I know this is after quote-unquote Memorial Day weekend, but May 30th is the actual date of Memorial Day. So we've been trying the last couple of years to hold our ceremony on that date. We're going to open today with our Pledge of Allegiance, and then I'll ask you to remain standing after for our national anthem. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I'd like to turn things over to the MHS Swing Choir under the direction of Miss Dina Madden. To the Swing Choir and Miss Dina Madden for that really wonderful rendition of our national anthem. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Peter Green, and over the last few years I've had the privilege to kind of MC this ceremony in honor of our nation's veterans, especially those who lost their lives in the service of our country. Before we get started today, I'd just like to thank a few people. I have a list here. I'd like to thank our administration and our board, Superintendent Shaps, Principal Liz Quain, and our school board. I'd like to thank our maintenance and custodial departments for the great job they do. I'd like to thank IT for helping me with the sound system and computer system. I'd like to thank Ms. Dina Madden and the music department for all the help they provide for these events to make sure that we have that musical element. I'd like to thank the Kemper Memorial Park Preservation Fund for sponsoring this competition. They maintain the memorial and they put up the prize money for this competition to continue to make the memorial an important part of our school institution. I'd like to thank the over 50 students who participated in this year's contest, discussing why memorials are important to our communities, either by writing a poem, writing an essay, writing a song, painting a picture, producing some kind of visual art. We had a lot of different entrances this year in the competition. It was a very difficult decision. And the group of people I'd most like to thank is our veterans. And if any could stand up and be recognized now, I would really appreciate it. A final thank you to the Kemper family, 2 representatives here today, Paul and Richard. Thank you guys for all the work you do with the memorial as well. Much appreciated. After our ceremony, we're going to continue with the American Legion out at the memorial for another brief Memorial Day ceremony. So now I'd like to turn things over, back to my agenda, to Jen Northrup, President of the Kemper Memorial Park Preservation Fund, to make a few brief remarks. Thank you, Jen.
Good afternoon. My name is Jan Northrup, as Peter said, and I'm president of the Kemper Memorial Park Preservation Fund, and have been since the fund was first formed almost 20 years ago. And it's a great honor to be in that position. My three sons all graduated from Mamaroneck High School between the years of 1999 and 2006. I, on the other hand, went to Camp Lejeune High School in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which is a major Marine Corps base. I was a sophomore in high school when the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred. Camp Lejeune was absolutely empty. It was eerie. It was like a ghost town. The rest of the nation may not, at that time, may not have realized how close we were to war. They talk about it now. But we, even though we were high school students, we sure did realize how close we were to war. And in our classrooms, we listened over the radio as the Russian ships approached the blockades, and what relief was felt when the Russian ships turned back. But what is seared in my memory is how our Marines were ready to go, no matter what was in store for them. My respect for the military had always been there, but now it had grown exponentially. What heroic individuals these men and women were. Fast forward 40 years to when I lived in Larchmont, and I learned that Mamaroneck High School had a World War II memorial park with 99, that honored 99 individuals, and I was fascinated. At the time, I was president of the Larchmont Historical Society, and I thought, what a treasure. As I began to research the names of the honorees and the dates of their deaths, I began to learn not only about the history of the community during the war, but the history of World War II itself. Questions cropped up. Where were the first deaths? Where were the last deaths? What year had the most deaths, and where were they? What was the sequence of the main battles? Battle of the Bulge, Okinawa, Iwo Jima, Normandy. Kemper Park honorees participated in most of them. How deadly were these battles? What were the turning points in the war? I quickly realized what a tremendous learning tool the monument was for the Mamaroneck High School students and middle school students. But of course, the Memorial Park is not just a learning tool. More importantly, it represents the ultimate sacrifice of 101 individuals made and the sacrifice our community made. It turned out that the list of 99 names was not complete, and 2 more were recently added. The time span was very short. In only 3 years, 1942 to 1945, at least 101 lives were lost. People that had been seen every day at school, at the post office, at the grocery stores, and on the streets. Many were very young, and all were our neighbors. Fortunately, their deaths were not in vain. At the end of World War II, horrific governments were overthrown, and the world was turned right side up again. We are so grateful to the Kemper Park honorees, as we are to all of those who fought in World War II. So many World War II veterans will say, it could have been my name on that monument. I was just lucky. Everyone who served in World War II took a huge risk because they didn't know where they were going to end up. And we are so grateful to them for doing so. Mamaroneck High School has a wonderful history. The Richard M. Kemper Park is dedicated to those who gave their lives in World War II, but right next to it, Veterans Memorial Field is dedicated to those who served in the armed forces during World War II and the Korean conflict. I couldn't be prouder of our community. We are so fortunate to have these reminders of our history on our high school campus, the geographical center of the Mamaroneck School District. So it's great to see everybody here today, and thank you very much for coming. And I'm very anxious to hear the entries, the many entries.
this new setup. So at this point, we'd like to recognize our 3 winners, and we're going to do it in alphabetical order. So I'm going to call up Kieran Gallagher, and he wrote an essay. He was one of our essay entries, and he's going to read it to us here. So it talks about the importance of memorials, and he's going to share it with us. You have a copy here?
Hello everyone, my name is Kieran Gallagher. I'm a sophomore here at MHS. I was inspired to write this essay not just because of the prize, but because my uncle is a veteran of the war in Afghanistan. My essay is titled, The Importance of Memorials. Thomas Jefferson once said, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants." This tree of liberty has been threatened over and over again in America's 250-year history. Repeatedly, young patriots have been sent to defend that sacred tree. As a result, many heroic American soldiers have perished. In remembrance of these heroes and heroines, many monuments have been erected across the country. For example, the Revolutionary War Statuary in Washington, D.C. honors the brave soldiers who died to liberate the 13 colonies from British tyranny during our war for independence. Another example is the Gettysburg Memorial, located in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This memorial honors the Union soldiers who died in this massive Civil War battle that took place from July 1st to July 3rd, 1863. An example of a monument in our community is the Kemper Memorial. The Kemper Memorial honors the soldiers from Larchmont and Mamaroneck who died during World War II. These monuments continue to be important today because we as Americans must be reminded of the blood that was spilled to grow our tree of liberty. The Revolutionary War Statuary is a collection of 14 statues placed all around Washington, D.C., built to honor those who died in the American Revolution. One of these statues is that of a man by the name of Nathan Hale. Nathan Hale was born in 1755 in Coventry, Connecticut. He enlisted in the Continental Army in 1775. During the Battle of Manhattan, George Washington needed a spy to infiltrate the enemy lines and report back. Hale was the only one to accept the task. However, during his mission, Hale was captured by the British and convicted of espionage. Hale was hanged the next morning. Hale was one of the thousands of young men who lost their life during America's struggle for independence. We need to remember these men for their courage and role they played in growing the tree of liberty. These patriots spilled their blood fighting tyrants so that we may have the basic liberties we have today. Men, like Nathan Hale, despise those who represent tyranny and hatred. He felt that he must fight for those who represented freedom, not oppression. His final words were, "I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country." Hale took patriotism to his grave and fought for everything we have today so that his beloved nation could be free. We must honor him and the brave men and women like him for their ultimate sacrifice that they made for the greater good. And what better way to do that than to erect a monument to immortalize their ultimate sacrifice. The Gettysburg Memorial, located in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, is a memorial dedicated to the Union soldiers who gave their lives in one of the deadliest and most significant battles of the Civil War. It took place from July 1st to July 3rd, 1863. The battle cost the lives of 51,000 men, 23,000 Union soldiers, and 28,000 Confederate soldiers. The battle took place during Robert E. Lee's second invasion of the North. If not for the Union forces stopping Lee in his tracks at Gettysburg, he may have even conquered the North. Nonetheless, it was a triumphant win for the Union, but it came at the horrific price of 23,000 soldiers. Due to this, Abraham Lincoln gave his famous Gettysburg Address on the battlefield, solidifying its memorial status. In the address, Lincoln stated that we have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. To this day, many people still make the patriotic pilgrimage to this battlefield to pay their respects to those patriots who died for the cause of freedom for all who live within the borders of the United States. No matter what you look like, who you worship, or what language you speak. The men who sacrificed their lives on that battlefield died to end the evil practice of slavery that had plagued their society for years. That is why the Gettysburg Memorial is still important today. We need to remember patriots whose blood was spilled so that everyone living in America can enjoy the Tree of Liberty. The Kemper Memorial, located in Mamaroneck, New York, was erected in memory of Richard Kemper, who lived right here in Mamaroneck. The memorial also bears the names of 100 other men and women who died in our community during World War II. During World War II, we fought to liberate Europe and the Pacific from the evil regimes of Hitler's Third Reich and the Japanese Empire. However, in the process, thousands of Americans lost their lives fighting these tyrants. They did it in the hopes that all people in the world might live in a world free of oppression and tyranny and prosper under the gentle Tree of Liberty. Although the Kemper Memorial is the smaller of the three monuments mentioned, that does not diminish its significance. The memorial shows that people who lived just down the street, who were a part of this community, died to protect the liberties we share today. People who have been neighbors, friends, spilled their blood to refresh the Tree of Liberty. The Kemper Memorial puts a name and a face to the everyday people who fought and died in this extraordinary war. All of these patriots gave their lives so that everyone could go to school, so that everyone could be represented in government, and to protect the idea that every man and woman is created equal. 101 men and women from Larchmont and Mamaroneck, New York, died for that cause. Therefore, it is only appropriate to remember their sacrifice with a memorial. Memorials, such as the Revolutionary War Statuary, Gettysburg Memorial, and Kemper Memorial, show our appreciation as American citizens for the brave soldiers and patriots who lost their lives to refresh our Tree of Liberty. These monuments continue to be important today because we as Americans must be reminded of the blood that was spilled to grow the Tree of Liberty. If it were not for these fallen heroes, we may not live in the great society we have today. They spilled their blood for the idea of liberty and justice for all. They spilled their blood for the land of the free and the home of the brave. In fact, we are only the land of the free today because of those who were so brave. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kieran, for that heartfelt essay that you wrote. It had citations. It was very well written. Now I'd like to call up Jackson Owen, our second prize winner. He's always second in order. All prize winners are equal. And he's going to read his poem, Remembered Numbers, Forgotten Individuals.
to thank the fund for giving me this honor, as well as the great job the other winners did in this contest. So yeah, let's get to the poem. Okay, so remember numbers, forgotten individuals. Okay. Blood. Our nation is built on the blood of heroes. Their names are etched on street signs and on gravestones, woven into the tapestry of history, sewn into the fabric of our curriculums and essays. 3,000 Americans fell at Omaha Beach, we learn. The stalemate of the Korean War turned into a meat grinder, we learn. Viet Cong guerrillas cost many GIs their lives in the jungles of Vietnam, we're told. 116,708, 407,316, 58,220. These are all numbers that become impossible to fathom when you're sitting in a steamy classroom waiting for a school to end. These men and women were raised and cherished by their families. They were adored by girlfriends, boyfriends, and spouses. They enjoyed life and its many comforts like all people. They loved their country so much they risked it all to preserve it for their American brothers and sisters. They fell at Corregidor and Carentan, at Hamburger Hill and Quai San, at Bella Wood by the banks of the Meuse, at Incheon and the Chosun Reservoir, at Fallujah and the streets of Kabul. They were helping the wounded men under their boots or the dying one ahead of them. They were sacrificing their potential lives for their brothers and sisters in arms. They were praying to Jesus, Muhammad, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, or Vishnu. They were reminiscing about John from the hardware store or Jane from the prom back home. They were guarding the country they treasured. And now, the woes and sacrifices of those selfless enough to exchange their life for freedom risk neglect. 116,708, 407,316, 58,220. But the numbers are just that, numbers. Everyone forgets the individuals behind the digits, the personalities lost in between the ink and paper, and the lives they left behind in the dirt of Vietnam, France, Germany, Italy, Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan, and countless other places. Most forget the lessons left behind by those lost. They represent a warning to humanity, a warning to those driving policy, a warning that war is hell, that war costs countless Americans their futures. At a time of ignorance of the annals of history and common sense, the stone can't be ignored. The rows of names hammered into the granite or marble or quartz that form memorials can't be covered. The flags cannot be disregarded. One can't help staring at a memorial and feel pride for one's country, feel the pride those who are honored felt when they enlisted, or even when they fell. While many today argue over history, it's hard to debate the importance of the men and women who died for America have on our national identity. It brings a common experience. It brings scars. It brings unity at a time when cooperation and harmony are in short supply. Without the monuments, we strive through time, parakeets of the past, constantly repeating history. So while we may learn the numbers of our conflicts in class, and their causes, and their effects, and their leaders, and their battles, nothing can replace the tangible reminder of a monument. Nothing can refresh our memories like the plaques that line its perimeter. Nothing can warn us quite like the personifications of the numbers we learn in school. Nothing can deter us quite like a column of names. In the end, it is the only thing protecting us from our own pride, our own aloofness, our own amnesia, our own ambition, our own cruelty, our own greed. Because nothing can demonstrate the danger of these behaviors better than the memory of the people who were killed by them. Thank you.
And for our last winner, and thank you very much, Jackson, for your beautiful poem. For our last winner, I'd like to invite up Emma Strudwick to talk about her spoken word piece, and then we're going to attempt to play it here if all technology cooperates. All right, come on up.
So hi, my name is Emma Strudwick and I'm a sophomore at Mamaroneck High School. For my project, I did a narration, like a spoken word story, and I had different students read aloud soldiers' letters home to their families and bring alive their stories and memories and their lives today. And for this project, I really want to focus on the human side of the war because too often the names and the stories are forgotten to history and are just numbers. So by telling their stories today and by putting a story behind these names, we're keeping their memory alive and sharing their story and continuing to inspire us today with their stories. So, yeah. Thank you.
Our country is free, but freedom comes with sacrifice. Memorials and monuments honor our soldiers, remembering their sacrifice and bravery. You will now hear from soldiers who fought in the First and Second World Wars. By telling their stories today, we prevent their sacrifice from being forgotten to history. Every soldier put on a brave face. December 24th, 1944.
Dear Mom, it's the evening before Christmas, but it's quite hard to realize this. I'll just sort of skip this year, and we'll all celebrate twice as much next year. We stayed in a fine building last night, and may tonight. It's funny how much a building can mean. I hope you, Dad, and Grandma all have a happy holiday, and that you don't worry too much about me. I'm really quite all right. Love, Burnett.
Their brave faces hid the fear they felt in their hearts. December 25th, 1944.
Dear Diary, don't let anyone tell you soldiers don't get frightened. They do. It took me several weeks to find out what fear is like. The initial landing scared me. I hadn't been ashore long before a sniper took a wild pot shot at me, and that markedly increased my pulse rate. But I learned that my reactions to these various stimuli were mild compared to the terror of the first serious bombing of the command post area. Bruce Levin Jr.
They were convinced they were going to die out on the battlefield. September 11th, 1918.
Dear Mom, the first Totally American Drive commences tomorrow, and it gives me immense joy and pride to know that I'll be present to do my share. I feel wonderfully strong to do my share well, and for my sake, if I die tomorrow, you must try to drown your sorrow in pride and satisfaction, with the knowledge that I died for so clean a cause. This should bring you joy. David Kerr.
Leaving behind the families they loved so much. February 16th, 1944.
Dearest Tony and Beck, I am in the best of health, and I hope to hear the same from you and the babies always. I think of you always, even though I don't write as often as I should. I could just picture us all sitting down together, eating, talking, and enjoying ourselves as soon as this war is over, and it won't be long now. Love, Babe.
Many soldiers were wounded in battle. April 13th, 1943.
Dear Ernie, thanks very much for your letter and kind wishes. My wounds are getting on all right, and they have discovered 11 in all. It's hard not to be able to get up, but I suppose a month will soon slip by. My people came by to see me yesterday and the day before. Well, old chap, I'm glad I'm wounded to get out of that hell. And if you ever meet a chap that says he wants to go back, call him a liar. Your old pal, Rip.
Their loved ones anxiously waiting for them to come home. March 28th, 1917.
My dearest Will, I feel I must write to you again, dear, although there is not much news to tell you. I wonder how you are getting on. I shall be so relieved to get a letter from you. I can't help but feel a bit anxious, dear. I know how you must have felt, darling, when you did not get my letters for so long. Of course, I know you will write as soon as you ever can, but the time seems so dull and weary without any news of you. If only this war was over and we were together again. It will be one day, I suppose. Lots of love, Emily.
Many didn't come home. November 11th, 1916.
Madame, it is my painful duty to inform you that a report has this day been received from the War Office notifying the death of Corporal Leonard Williamson. I am to express to you the sympathy and regret of the Army Council at your loss, the cause of death, killed in action.
Our brave soldiers never gave up. We are reminded of their bravery, courage, and selflessness every time we pass by memorials and monuments. Their stories serve as an inspiration for us to be better human beings and to fight for what we believe in. It keeps us humble, something we need in this current political climate. The freedom we have is because of them. They should never be forgotten.
The heroes of yesterday will not be pushed out of our recollection, or the recollection of generations of boys and girls who will be receiving the blessings of liberty.
So before we conclude our ceremony, I do like to thank you all for coming and setting aside this just 30 minutes of time in recognition of all those who kind of gave their lives for our nation and for the rights that we possess. So for our conclusion of the ceremony, I'd like to call up Natalie Manley to perform taps, and then we can proceed out to the Kemper Memorial for the American Legion ceremony. Thank you.